Good afternoon and welcome to the next in my series of In Conversation videos. I've always been interested as part of my personal and professional development in the benefits that come about when we challenge ourselves or come out of our comfort zone. From this interest, my business Noodle was born. I get a great sense of pride seeing how people grow and develop when they challenge themselves to do something they've never tried before or thought they could do. I've been developing this to help people in their working life and particularly leadership roles to see how they can stretch their horizons and become more resilient. Never was there a time that tested our resilience more than with COVID-19. I've been delivering a series of discussions and webinars with people I admire for the skills and techniques they use to develop people, looking at how some of the tools they use can possibly be transferred into our everyday lives to improve our resilience and mental health, amongst other areas. Today I'm talking with Dr Nerina Ramlakhan. I've known Nerina for just over 4 months when I met her during one of my first lockdown swims in the Thames at Teddington over the winter. Nerina immediately struck me as a very insightful and driven person and a bit of a kindred spirit. Nerina is a sleep and energy expert and author. Her work is dedicated to helping people and organisations to thrive, sleep more deeply and live more joyfully. So, welcome to Nerina. How are you today?
Hello, Denise. I'm really well because I've had a little run after having had a knee injury for a while. So I did a little run today and I've had a swim and I've done some work and I've actually got my head down into book 4 as well, which feels really good.
Wow, I mean, that's all pretty, a bit of an overachiever. That's quite a lot to have done in one morning. So I'm impressed as ever.
Oh, well, I set myself 3 hours to work on the book today. And for some reason, Googling how to make creme caramel became a lot more important. And in the end, I spent 45 minutes on the book. But I think once I get going, I really do get going. So.
Oh, I look forward to the creme caramels. And it's funny to have a conversation. We were just saying with you whilst we're not shivering half dressed on a riverbank. So let's see if we can make some sense of this at the moment.
Absolutely.
So if we sort of start off, I mean, as I've got to know you just over this past few months, I've been fascinated by your backstory and the series of events that got you to where you are. Can you tell us a bit about your background and the challenges you faced?
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, because we've only got a certain amount of time after all, I really struggled for more than half of my life. I've struggled with mental health problems, and I had quite a difficult childhood, pretty difficult childhood, to the point where when I got to my early 30s, I had a complete breakdown. It was a psychotic episode, and I was sectioned. And I was diagnosed during that time with bipolar disorder and complex PTSD. And long story short, that was 31 then. And I went on a journey for 4 years, one that was very difficult, trying various medical interventions in and out of clinical settings and different types of therapy. And when I was 34, there was this voice in my head. And, the funny thing was that throughout all of this, so you've called me did you call me an overachiever? I think you did, didn't you? Yeah, throughout all of this, I was still achieving. I had a degree, I had a PhD, I had several really good jobs, a lectureship at University of Westminster. And when I was 34, at that point, I was a director at Bupa, but something was going on. And I just thought the way I'm living my life, I'm struggling so much mentally. I need to do something different, and I don't really know what that is, but I need to do something drastic. So, in true Aries fashion, I uprooted. I left the marriage that I was in. I walked out of the job, and the marriage was supportive. He was a very supportive man, but I think I was actually making him ill because he was over supporting me. I came off my medication, came out of therapy. I wouldn't recommend, by the way, that anyone do what I did, but I literally got on a plane, headed out to Brisbane without realizing that even though we were summer here, it was winter over there. And basically went cold turkey for 3 months. And during that time, something shifted in me. I've tried to understand what it was that shifted. I've read a lot of books about this, and I can only call it an awakening of some sort. But there was undoubtedly a shift in consciousness. And I came back from Brisbane. They were holding the job for me at Bupa. They were immensely supportive, but I decided to set up my own practice, and everything started growing from there. I've never looked back. So I've written books. I've spent the last 25 years consulting in organizations. ironically was headhunted to work at the same psychiatric clinic where I'd once been a patient. For 10 years, I was working there running sleep and energy programs. And as a result of that work, ended up being the doctor on This Morning, talking about sleep, lots of media work, you know, so it's all sort of grown from that, from this immense pain of the initial, you know, stages of my life, to waking up to the fact that I wanted to do something differently and something shifting in me. Um, and
Yeah.
going on from there to live a different life, which has still been fraught with lots of traumas and challenges, but somehow I have shifted, I've changed, you know. So I think I thrive despite life constantly throwing me curved balls, you know.
Mm. I mean, this sounds like, I know you've done a very condensed version there because I know quite a lot of detail about it, but do you think there was
Mm.
a particular challenge in your life that was that turning point that changed everything and really sort of shaped who you are? Is there one sort of moment that really springs to mind for you?
Um, I think awakenings happen. They're often a well-defined set of things that happen when you go through a massive shift in your consciousness, you know. And first is usually something drastic happening, and I think that that was a realization that my marriage was really over. Um, when I was, you know, 31, just realizing that I was with this most wonderful man, but he just wasn't meant to be my husband. But he was my only safety at that point. And I threw myself into my work. I started training for marathons. I started going to salsa clubs. I was not getting any sleep, and basically biochemically put myself into a psychosis. You know, I was driving over Waterloo Bridge and I forgot how to drive at 2 o'clock in the morning. No alcohol, no drugs, nothing. And that was basically my brain just kind of imploding. So that was the first step. And then 4 years later, you know, just I don't really know what it was that shifted in me, but just this feeling of I've got to do it differently. I've just got to do it differently, and going out there. And when I got to Brisbane, sorry, I've been swimming this morning, of course. Getting to Brisbane and realizing that I'd let go of a lot of my supports, and I was free falling, and I went into real shock, and I was terrified. And in fact, I phoned he was still my husband, and I phoned him and I said, please come and get me. I'm in a really bad way. I'm really depressed. I actually feel suicidal. I don't know what I've done. I don't know why I've done this. And he said, I can't do this anymore. You know, I just can't do it anymore. So what I started doing was, right, I can either sink or swim. And I'd always loved the page, a paper and pen. And I started going down to this Mary Ryan's bookshop in Brisbane and just writing a journal. And 2 weeks of doing this, something started to change in me. And I started to find this inner peace. I think it was coming home to myself, being still enough to meet myself, you know, for the first time in my life, and making sense of all the trauma of my childhood. And the journey has continued. The journey continues. I don't think it's ever over until we're done, until we've left. But certainly those were big episodes in my life. And since then, I've had some other big episodes. You know, my sister dying quite suddenly and traumatically. A couple of years after I got back from Brisbane, my second marriage ending very suddenly, my daughter getting very ill during the pandemic, and then leaving to live with her father because we just felt that was better for her, and she fell in love. You can't compete with teenage love, but you know that all of these have made me batten down the hatches and go in deeper. And actually, it was out of the trauma of my daughter leaving that I decided I need to change things up. I'm going to continue going down to the river to swim, even though we're going into winter. I'm going to keep doing this. Have I
Interesting.
answered your question?
No, that's a great answer, and actually gives me more insight than I had before. And the swimming, well, obviously that's a savior in so many ways. We both know.
It really is, yeah.
And I
Mm.
think that there's two sides to challenge as well there. I think because I speak a lot about how the more you introduce small challenges into your life,
Yeah.
you sort of stretch yourself, the more resilient you become.
Mm.
Obviously, there's other challenges that are imposed on us, but how does this resonate with you? And have you changed the way you think about challenges throughout your own journey?
Yes. I mean, there are times when things happen to me, and I can go into a real poor me victim mode. And I go, why is my life like this? You know, why is this happening to me? I'm in my 50s, I'm on my own, just me and my two animals. And why is this happening? And then I get to a point and I go, Nerina, rewrite your script, right? You need to, and sometimes I need to be in that mode for a while, and then the tears come, because I spent a lot of my life running away from allowing myself to feel the tears that meant to, that needed to be felt. And I'm a neuroscientist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD in neurophysiology. And for this fourth book that I'm writing, I've done a lot of work on how we embody trauma. And if you don't feel your trauma, if you don't feel your sadness, you don't feel your emotions, you actually trap it in your body. And I used to use a lot of exercise to just push through stuff without realizing that at a subtler level I was still holding on to some pain and grief. So I did an Ironman, I did 7 marathons, I did 30 odd triathlons. This happened when I got back from Brisbane. I went on a mission, and undoubtedly training and competing within my limits. I'm not an elite athlete, but that really helped. But then I got to a point where it stopped working, and I needed to go in and do some work on the childhood trauma, which was much more painful than running a marathon.
Oh,
You
I
know,
bet. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I do, the way I view challenges now is, once I can get myself past the victim thing, which normally lasts, well, it can last like a day or two sometimes, this bad feeling. But sometimes a lot shorter, often a lot shorter. I go, right, what can I do differently? And what do I need to do? And one of the things I love doing, as you know, is pull-ups. So I've got my pull-ups bar out. And when I wake up in the morning, I have a practice in the morning that I follow. But one of the things is to get my pull-ups bar out of my daughter's room, which has become a bit of a storage for my for my sports equipment. Get it and hang it on the door. And for me, that's an affirmation of strength and power. That, because I think to do a pull-up, I need to engage my core. I need to be really in my body to do it. And every time I do a set of pull-ups, I feel so embodied. I feel so with myself. And if I don't feel great doing a pull-up, sometimes that's the way forward. Not always, but sometimes. Often.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that sort of sums it up. I think you said it very eloquently there, that because for me, I'm a bit the same, where if you feel a bit down in your head, you sort of,
Yeah.
I then go and do something with my body to sort of say, well, it does reaffirm, I think is what you're saying, about
Mm.
how the strength that you have, and you think, right, if I can do this. And you also reference the limits that comes with that, which we'll come back onto as well. I think that's really
Yeah.
on a bit of a theme, perhaps. Would you describe yourself as tenacious? And can you give us an example of when you had to really embrace grit and determination to achieve something?
Yeah. I definitely see myself, because sometimes people say you're really ambitious. I don't really see myself as ambitious. I do see myself as tenacious. And I think one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me was one of my best friends, Carolyn, saying to me, if there was a nuclear holocaust, you dance your way out of it. And that's something she put it much more eloquently than I did. I did look at her and say, "You're calling me a cockroach," But I have been through some really difficult times. And like with my sister dying, I found out shortly after she died. I had been told I could never have children, but shortly after she died, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. It was all really spooky. And while I was over the moon, I also knew enough about mental health to know that carrying a child when you're in the throes of bereavement, of grief, it's not great. You have to really, and so I think my tenacity took me through, because especially when she was born, I think I probably came quite close to going down again and going into postnatal depression, because becoming a mother, you feel everything, and no one prepared me for that. So I had to really again batten down the hatches and find my strength, find my reserves of strength. to be a good mother, to my version of a good mother, even though I was still dealing with a lot of grief. You know, my sister died in 2002. I still feel it. You know, yeah. There've been. I mean, that's quite a big example, a big you know, example of having to really dig deep. But little things like, you know, I've been presenting in the city for years. Then there's this one year I'm giving a talk on resilience at an investment bank at St. Paul's. I always allow lots of time when I was traveling into clients, and pull into Waterloo on the train. And for some reason, oh, in fact, there was a student march on the Strand, and it took me over an hour to get to Bank of America. And I turn up there, and there's over 650 people. And then during that time, I couldn't get a bus, couldn't get a taxi. Everything was just had ground to a halt. Torrential rain and wind. My umbrella had blown inside out, and you know, I turned up there 15 minutes late, and they just weren't happy. They didn't want to hear what I had to say, and I had to get up there and talk about resilience. And I was looking like a drowned rat. I couldn't even check my makeup, do my hair, or anything. And there's times like that where I really come into my own. I think I think probably because of my childhood, I'm quite good at finding that inner core of strength when stuff's hitting the fan. You know, and I like rising to occasions like that. You know, like last week, you know about this, my friend's jacket blew into the river after we'd got out, naked under my changing robe. And we're both shivering like you do when you get out that cold water. And we're looking at her jacket going down. It's about a third of a mile down the river, down the Thames. And I'm like, yes, I'm getting in there. I had to just about stop myself from jumping in naked. Managed to get the swimsuit on and jump in and go. So I like I like being stretched.
Yeah, I think
You know.
that's definitely a good way of putting it. Because I think people often use
Mm,
that thing about coming out of your comfort zone, and for a lot of people that can
mm,
feel quite um, difficult, or it's a bit of a challenging way of putting it, isn't it? But I think being stretched is a much sort of a kinder way of saying it. But I think we all need those little stretches in life, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally identify with what you say there. And you sort of think, yes, give me the challenge, give me that thing, and also
yeah,
to
yeah.
like,
Although I have got to this point in my life now where, because of my spiritual beliefs, you know, I believe that there is something beyond us. I was brought up very confusingly with very strict Hindu parents, went to strict Catholic convent schools, went to very strict Church of England school in this country. But I don't necessarily follow a religion as such. But I do believe that that we're here to evolve and grow, and that there is something beyond us that's working for us. And I do think sometimes when these big challenges happen in my life, I think, okay, this is an opportunity to grow, but can we just lighten up now a bit? Because I think, you know, I need a break. Can I have a break? Can you just give me a break now? You know. So I
yeah.
do, you know, while you know, I'm here to grow, and I'm all for that, and I'm all for being stretched. Sometimes I just sort of think, right, I just want a bit more of a peaceful life for a bit now, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it comes to a point, doesn't it? I think I feel a bit like that about this pandemic, where you think, where is the light at the end of the tunnel? And I think
Mm.
we'll come on to a bit of that in a minute as well. So I'm going to change things up slightly, but I think something that we've spoken about, which kind of really I'm interested in as a female athlete of a certain age,
Yeah.
and how our bodies change in terms of composition and hormone response as we get older. And can you
Mm.
share any insights into this, perhaps from both a personal and professional perspective?
Yeah. So, you know, in my as a physiologist, you know, I spent years measuring the health of people throughout different ages. So I know that our physiology starts to become less elastic past the age of about 30, 35. You know, you're a student at uni and you can cane yourself drinking all night, and you can still turn up for your lectures just about the next day, you know. Whereas as you get older, you go out and have too much to drink, and then you never stop talking about it. You know, oh, I was up until 3 a.m. or whatever, and it takes much longer to recover. I don't do that sort of thing at all now. You know, I'm more like, oh, I had 2 glasses of wine last night. But anyway, but nothing quite prepared me for going into the menopause, you know, and perimenopause. And I didn't know. I went into it quite with I think quite ignorant, to be honest. And looking back on it, I think that it was compounded by going through some major life events during that perimenopause and menopause. My dad dying, having my daughter when I was 40, marriage ending, moving house very suddenly during that time. So there was some really big, my mum being diagnosed with Alzheimer's during that. So this was really big stuff. And what also I found as I went past perimenopause and well and truly into menopause was that I couldn't use exercise to push through it. Doing all these marathons and triathlons and stuff like that, my body just didn't want that anymore. And I'm quite hypermobile, so my joints started to protest. And I also noticed that the more I tried to do endurance sport, the more weight I put on. I was putting on because I was putting my cortisol levels up. And when your cortisol goes up, you start producing more internal fat to almost protect the body from free radicals. I'm not going to go into a whole biochemistry lecture. Long story short with all of this is that over exercising when you're in menopause in terms of weight control is not necessarily a good thing, So I certainly started to notice I didn't have the stamina, my body didn't like it. But I started to notice that my body wanted different things. I wanted to dance more, or I wanted to do Pilates. That felt good. I wanted to go back to doing the strength training because I used to bodybuild years ago, and I wanted to go back to feeling strong in my body again and building some more weights sessions in. And also I wanted more cold water. I mean, my family come from the Caribbean, and I've always hated the cold. In fact, I think my second marriage, a lot of that was to do with the fact I was always putting the thermostat up, and he's Scottish. And he was always putting the
Don't go there, don't go
Sorry,
there.
I'm being really irreverent here. I'm sure it wasn't just that. But
I can resonate with that as well.
yeah,
I'm the one
but now,
that sat down.
but now that I'm cold swimming, my daughter comes to visit me every 2 weeks and she's like, Mum, can we have the heating on? I'm like, oh God, do we have to? Because I've become so much more tolerant. But have I answered your question? Let's go back to it. I've noticed as I'm getting older, I'm 57, right? I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to skirt around it. I am finding a different way of exercising and loving it. So like this morning, going out 45 minutes, running through the trails with my dog, and just loving that the little bursts of intermittent, of speed, and then walking and speed. Whereas before that, I wouldn't have considered that was exercise.
I think that's interesting because when I'm sort of talking about the challenges and the opportunities, and I think there's not a lot, full stop. Well, there's more nowadays, but there's not a lot said about the menopause, is there? And for women who are like, mostly what we're told is the sort of negative sides of it, and the flashes and the things that are going to happen, and the bad things that will change. But I'm hearing you say there are good things that come out of it. And what are the particular positive things? I suppose are there mental changes that happen?
Yeah, I mean, once I've got it right with my supplements, and I take body identical hormones, a form of hormone replacement therapy, which is more the structure of the hormones is similar. The pharmaceutical structure is it's more similar. The molecular structure rather is more similar to our own natural hormones, and I found a blend that works for me. But also, once I got that right, I started to notice a "don't f with me" attitude starting to come through. I did say I wasn't going to swear, didn't I?
That's fine.
Right, because I've always been a people pleaser, and especially 20 odd years consulting in the corporate environment, starting to do the work that I was doing at a time when the doors were really quite firmly closed. So companies had to let you in to talk about stress and stuff because they had a duty of care and there was health and safety legislation. But they didn't really want you in there, and they would say, "Can you come and do a one-day program on stress," but not mention the word stress. It's like, okay. But now I've just noticed going in the menopause, and I think, there's a reason why it's called the age of the crone. God, the age of the crone, it's called. But I prefer village elder.
Yes.
So I have noticed that I say stuff, whether it's in my corporate work or whether it's to friends, I speak my truth more. And I feel quite grounded in speaking my truth. And I'm going to say what I'm going to say kindly, especially when I'm going into organizations where there's a lot of BS going on. and I'm just going to call it. And I'm going to say, I don't think that what you're doing. Recently, I had a company that came to me that said, a law firm, that throughout the pandemic, obviously, all their fee earners are working from home like everybody else. But as a result, they've increased their billable hours target. In other words, you're going to work from home, you need to be, we're putting your targets up. And so people have come back, the fee earners have come back to them and said, listen, you need to start paying our Deliveroo bills because we haven't got time to shop and we haven't got time to cook food because the targets are so unrealistic. So they asked me to do a session for them on stress. And I just said, I don't feel able to do that because I'm going to say things that you won't like because I think your targets are unrealistic. I mean, it was a bit of I had to take a deep breath because, obviously we're in a pandemic and we're all trying to work and all this kind of stuff, but it didn't sit right with me. And I was nervous for days thinking about this presentation, and I don't like to work in a scripted way. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to script myself if I'm going to do this presentation, because some of this I don't feel comfortable with. And so in the end, I just said I wasn't. Long story short, a nice end to the story. They've gone away to look at their billable hours.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
great. You've obviously given.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it? Because you can't just keep. It's like anything, isn't it? You can't just keep trying to address the symptom. You've got to get to the root of the problem, haven't you, as well? And both
Exactly.
are hand in hand, don't they? But
Mm.
yeah,
I think with menopause, definitely I found a greater sense of conviction in what I want to say. And I also think I feel more joyful. I definitely feel more joyful. I, you know, I just enjoy little things. And I think this pandemic has really brought that out. There will be days where not great things happen, but then when those moments, you get these little moments, like when I'm out with my dog or having a cackle with you and Louisa down at the river or whatever it is, I have more of a laugh. The happy moments, to me, they've really magnified. I really soak in them now. I don't take them for granted.
that's great. That's great. You also, I think,
Also,
spoke to me about a word. Is it a Hindi word? Satnam. That.
oh, Satnam means, yeah, truth is my name. And I think so in the Vedanta philosophy, in Hindu philosophy, we are told that we're all here to speak our truth, and we've got to work out what our truth is. And I think, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to work out what our truth is, and we're here to fulfill it's called dharma. That's another Hindu Sanskrit word. Dharma means your life purpose. So it's like, in the whole body of humankind, we're each of us a cell in the body of humankind, and each cell has a different function. A brain cell is different from a liver cell, and a liver cell is different from a stomach cell, but no one cell is better than the other because they're all there to do their vital role. But as human beings, we all have our unique cell function. We have our unique function, and our dharma, our life purpose, is what we're here to work out and to do that. And then we feel a click, and I felt that click after my PhD. I had a number of jobs. I actually thought I wasn't cut out to work. I just thought, I don't think I like working. And lectureship, hated it. Worked at the Medical Research Council, hated it. Did a postdoc at the University College London, hated it. But I loved being a bike courier. I did that for 6 months while I was writing up my PhD. I loved that. And I loved when I started working in health screening. I felt this click and I thought, I'm doing what I'm born to do. I love this. I didn't know about Dharma. I didn't know about that, but I just knew that I love talking to people about their health and helping them to navigate the world by adapting. So,
Interesting. It is interesting that what brings us to where we are. Those little moments that just got put in front of us, and suddenly you think, "Oh, this is it." Like bike courier is fascinating. Something I fancy trying.
yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to go on and talk about, well, one of your absolute specialist subjects in relationship to resilience. So sleep and resilience.
Mhm.
So I've spoken to a number of people about resilience and how they understand it in their field of work and life. Can you tell me what your definition of resilience is to start with?
Yeah, so I love that question, and certainly resilience is a word that lots of people, it's a buzzword these days, isn't it? And we used to define it as the ability to bounce back from challenge. And I liked that definition, but the one I prefer to use, the one that I'm using in my work, is the ability to thrive in the face of adversity. The ability to thrive in the face of adversity, the ability to thrive in ourselves, even when shit's hitting the fan all around us, which it's always going to do, because that is life, you know? So that's my definition of resilience.
Very good. And I thought, yeah, that makes total sense when you say it like that, because we should be in that period where we're trying to thrive, and everything, as you're saying, all the examples you've given, life is always throwing things at us. So it's that ability to be able to thrive through that.
It is, and what's important about that is that a lot of people feel that we're going through difficult times. And you talk to people during the pandemic, and you ask people, "Oh, how are you doing?" They'll say surviving. And actually, I never use that word. I hate that word. I think I spent 30 odd years surviving. I don't want to go back there. But a lot of people will think, okay, if there's bad stuff going on, we can just about survive it. But actually, what if we challenge ourselves to think, look, even while this is going on, can I choose, can I make choices that will enable me to thrive? Can I choose wisely? Can I choose differently? Um, and I spend a lot of time in my work, just helping people to make different choices, as well as doing it myself.
I think when you're saying that, using the pandemic as the example again, something you've referred to and I totally agree with is you probably think of the river swimming as something that has enabled us to thrive as well, because I call that one of my little COVID keepers, that ability to have been able to swim throughout the winter, which I've never done before, really because of, well, logistical reasons and all sorts of things. And you think the feeling that it then gives you, you think, right, I've managed to thrive through this in some ways. So it's a good example.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of my COVID keepers as well. And, there are times when I have felt really, really down. And this, when my daughter comes to visit me for the weekend, and then on a Monday, it just hits me when she's gone. And I feel grief stricken again. And the thing is, the way our body embodies, the way it holds emotions, is that grief goes into the grief pot. And in that grief pot is all the loss. So it's not just about Maya, it's about my sister, it's about my mother, it's about every loss I've ever had. So it comes back like a tsunami, or a mini tsunami. It's not as bad as it gets easier. But I go down to that river, and as you know, when you're doing that front crawl, you've got to get your breathing right. And we've got our head in the water, which I started doing as a result of being inspired by you doing it, watching you doing it. And it resets my physiology. It resets the nervous system, and my parasympathetic is then boosted, and I'm thriving.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. It's just talking about it gets me back in that place, which is fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You're obviously renowned for your work as a sleep expert. What can you tell us about the importance of sleep and how it impacts everything we do in our waking lives and our resilience?
Yeah. In a nutshell, the way we sleep is a reflection of how we live. And there's a reason why nature has designed us to spend a third of our lives sleeping. A third, you know. So there's an intelligence in that design. And when we sleep well, and in Hindi, there's another word called sattvic. Sattvic means pure. So when we get pure, deep sleep, sattvic sleep, I think Gwyneth Paltrow called it clean sleep. But when we get that pure sleep, sattvic sleep, I think it heals and restores the body on every level: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So we have vitality, we're more loving in our relationships, more tolerant, we think with laser focus, and we have a greater chance of being inspired, whether it's making some rock buns or whether it's writing that novel you've always wanted to write. So I think it feeds all of those levels, this intelligent thing called sleep. But conversely, when we don't get that, it starts to really erode our health. And so I've spent a lot of time, including in that psychiatric clinic, helping thousands, probably millions of people over the years to sleep. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear a strange noise right now. It's not my stomach. My dog is actually snoring while I'm talking to you. So as if on cue. Thanks for that, Mira. Yeah, so sleep is vital, but sleep is a reflection of how we live. We sleep how we live.
Mm.
And if we live well, we sleep well. But what is living well about? Living well is about loving well. It's about making good choices. So, if you live well, you love well, you're going to sleep well. I didn't mention this when I talked about my little bit of my backstory, but when I was 6 months old, my mother was taking me from one doctor to the next because I couldn't sleep. So at the core of my passion to help people to sleep well is the healing of my own sleep. So a lot of the time, even throughout menopause, I get very restorative sleep, which is very important in the menopause, that you protect the quality of your sleep and you do the things that will help you to not get hot flushes, help you to get back to sleep when you wake up, all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know. And I know you're going to give us a few little tips at the end of the talk about.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I think, yeah, the menopause, it's good to bring it back to that because I know that a lot of people that like myself, that'll be watching this, have those moments where you think sleep can be difficult during this time with the hormones,
Mhm.
I think the constant interruptions to your sleep. So yeah, you're right. Reflect what you do during the day and bring it into.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've obviously working with, as you say, thousands of people, but over the past
Mm.
year, what have you been noticing specifically about how people's sleep has been affected, and how has your work with people been changing to address this?
Yeah, when we first went into the pandemic, the first lockdown, I thought, right, I have no idea what this is going to mean for my work. I'm just going to just go quiet and work on my fourth book. And actually, the work's gone through the roof because I've noticed it's gone in waves where people, initially in the first lockdown, there was a lot of fear. People were running in survival mode. That's why they were buying up all the toilet rolls and rice and pasta and everything. So we were really running on fear. That's not conducive to you getting good sleep. So a lot of people weren't sleeping well, and the demand for my work increased. I think people have then settled, and now I've got clients. Oh, that's a really good question, actually, because I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't. It's just pennies landed. Getting less requests for my sleep work, but more requests for things like sessions on breaking, from survival to thriving, or how to find inner safety. So that's, we sleep when we feel safe. So fundamentally, what my work is about really is about helping people to feel safe. It's not really about sleep because, it's going into the core of it. So yeah, there's been more demand for things around thriving. How do we get more energy? Because I think a lot of people are just feeling so tired, and tired because of the uncertainty, tired because of the divisiveness around us. Vaccine, no vaccine, hug, don't hug, isolation, loneliness. All of this drains our energy. I think a lot of sessions also on optimism and happiness. How do we stay optimistic and happy and hopeful during these difficult times? All of which are juicy subjects that I love talking about. I love talking about sleep, but I love getting into the deeper core of stuff, and taking those conversations deeper.
Definitely, definitely. I know we were going to talk a little bit again, just surface level about mental health as well after this, and which is, as you say, it all comes back to that as well, and all of the
Mm.
feed into sleep.
Mm.
I mean, I think the word for somebody when somebody is anxious about sleeping, just talking about sleep can then just bring the anxiety up, can't it? Because they know they can't get
Yeah,
or they can't stay
yeah,
asleep. So it's
yeah.
addressing those core issues. Interesting. And now this is for me, probably just a bit of an indulgent one for me, really, because my friends who know me well know that I'm quite a vivid dreamer, and I'm personally fascinated by dreams. What insights can you tell us about dreaming? I mean, is it important?
Mm.
Is it something we all do?
Yeah, so everyone dreams, but not everyone remembers their dreams. And if you look at the science behind why people remember and why they don't, there's one hypothesis that it's related to the neurological connection between right and left brain, and the degree of myelination of the nerve fibers that's taking information from one side to the next. So we can get really boring about it, but in a nutshell, we all dream. We dream for all sorts of different reasons. One of the reasons we dream is to clean up the information of the day. So, at the moment we're talking, we're filing information, we're dealing with emails, we're looking at our phone, looking at the news, whatever. All information ends up in a reservoir in the brain. And if you don't take breaks during the day and allow yourself to go offline and just daydream and zone out, you've got all that information to pack away during the night, and that's when we get the subjective experience of dreaming. You think, God, felt like I was at work all night last night. So that's one type of dreaming. That's less exciting. Then you have the creative dreams, which I suspect you have those, which are bizarre and strange. And, those can be an immense, that could make you a lot of money, Denise. It's like Stephen, okay, I've given it away. Okay, famous author who, traveling on American Airlines years ago, fell asleep and dreamt about a crazed fan capturing him and taking him to her hut in the woods, tied him to the bed and broke his ankles to stop him escaping. So he had this dream. So he woke up. I thought, wow, brilliant plot for a book, scribbled it on a napkin, and of course then went on to write a book. What was the book called, which then was made into a film? What was the book called? What was the film called? Who was the author?
I know the film was called Misery.
Yes.
Was the book?
Yes, it's Misery.
Misery. Stephen King.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Stephen King. There you go. So maybe you need to write a novel. So if you're very creative, that's that can come out in your dream state. We can have premonitory dreams as well. I talk all about this in my first and second books, actually. We can have dreams which are premonitory. Something that we dream is going to happen, and then a week later it happens. And then we can have dreams that tip into nightmares and night terrors, which are a group of sleep disorders called the parasomnias. And that can be related to trauma, So I used to suffer from nightmares and night terrors, hardly ever get those now, I can't remember that. It's probably been decades since I've had a nightmare, Then, some of our dreams can be related to overstimulation of the nervous system, simple overstimulation. So too much caffeine, too much sugar, alcohol on your device before you're going to bed, and that just causes almost like a reverberation in the nervous system. And there's just more for the brain to settle, to kind of decompress. And we decompress in the dream state,
So there's good outlets for dreaming. There's the positive ones which can enable us to write a book, and the creative ones, but then the ones that are more troubling is something else is underlying there, is what you're saying.
Something, it might be deeper work, or it might just mean a clean up your act, which I'm gonna give you some tips for your listeners to clean up the sleep, to clean up so you'll have more energy. But also it can help if you're getting really maddening dreams that are waking you up during the night. But I hope you write your dreams down, Denise.
I must admit, I haven't been. I've got a dream book that I always go back to and refer, when there's those themes that come up and I think, oh, what does that mean? I don't know. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. So if there's a recurring theme, because I used to get that. God, I could tell you, two particular dreams. I'm just keeping an eye on time though. But one of them, can I just tell you one? Yeah. One of them was it was like a bit like the scene in Train Spotting with the toilet.
Oh yeah.
So I would go into the toilet and basically I want to use the toilet and it suddenly starts overflowing and there's just stuff everywhere. And that was too much other people's shit.
Oh.
And it's like, get your boundaries in place. Stop trying to rescue everyone. Stop trying to solve everyone's problems, because you're taking that to bed with you. That's why you're not sleeping. So there was that one. And then the other one was, classic at a lecture podium, about to give a lecture, thousands of people look down. Of course, I'm naked. So that was a fear of speaking my truth, Satnam, fear of being exposed. I don't get that dream anymore. I don't have any fear of public speaking, but recurring dreams. And if you're getting really vivid dreams, a little recipe is write them down first thing in the morning before you've talked to anyone. So Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, is brilliant, where she talks about doing morning pages, which I think you do, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Just go before you've talked to anyone about it, before you've had too many conversations, just get straight into the dream. And as you start writing, almost meditatively, without editing, you'll start to remember more of your dream. It's fascinating, So I might go back to the journaling I did this morning and go, whoa, because I did write something about dreams. I have no idea what I dreamt, but I'll go back to the journal and go, I cannot remember that. Don't remember that I dreamt that, but I've written it. you know.
Fascinating. Yes,
Mm.
I do the morning pages. I don't tend to catalog my dreams though, but I am going to. There could be a novel
Mm.
in there.
Exactly. Bestseller.
As we are in an approaching mental health week, talk a little bit about tools and techniques for mental health.
Mm.
I understand you work with people to help them address their feelings of stress, anxiety, other
Mm.
mental pressures, to help them find energy and inspiration to move forward in life with hope and
Mm.
joy. And what have been the main insights you've gained that have helped you to help others in this area? I mean, that's a big question.
It is. You're asking me to sum up over 25 years worth of experience now in 3 minutes. Thanks for that, Denise. Hold you in the water next. No, I'm joking. Um, so, in a nutshell, if I can sort of give you something practical as well for people who are listening as well, um, look after yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So, think about, so if I give you some tips on all of those levels, we're four energies, really. We're made up of four energies. So if you're looking after yourself physically, it's protect the quality of your sleep. I'll give you some quick tips because that one really balances out mental ill health. And don't forget, 10 years in psychiatry, as well as once having been in there as well. So look after yourself physically, make the right choices with nutrition. Don't over rely on caffeine. I don't know if people will see that I've switched mugs during the session. So this one was my tea, and now drinking lots of hot water as well. So you really want to be able to tick the box on things like make sure you get good exercise, make sure you get out into nature, make sure you're drinking enough water, physical self-care, then emotional self-care, particularly if you're dealing with, my biggest thing I've dealt with during the pandemic was loneliness, being on your own. I know I've got a dog, my beautiful rescue dog, and my cat, but I really was on a mission to make sure I was getting, if I couldn't get hugs, make sure that I'm talking to people, smiling, making eye contact, doing virtual hugs, things like that. And again, dog walking and going down to the river, the COVID keepers, that has certainly really helped on the emotional side. And also learn how to deal with the bad stuff, have a place for the sadness. Don't always try to kind of paper over it and plaster over it and go, yeah, I'm fine, I'm surviving. If you have to cry, cry, or find, I mean, I have to say my relationships with some of my friends have really strengthened in this last year. We've been more honest than we've ever been before, and that meant having uncomfortable conversations, and it meant saying to one of my dearest friends, we need to be in touch more. Can we do that? Can we be more honest with each other? Can I cry with you as well as laughing with you? And it takes courage to ask for those sorts of connections in relationships, I think. So make sure you're getting good emotional support. On the mental level of our energy, don't constantly be on your devices. That a lot of people, home is work and work is home now. But we have to establish healthy boundaries, says she, sitting in the dining room, working on rather than having this in my office in the garden. But we need to put boundaries in place and not be on our devices constantly draining the mental batteries, because when you drain the mental batteries, it drains the physical and the emotional. If you've got Zoom fatigue, you're less appreciative of your partner and their foibles, aren't you? Yeah, that sort of thing. Be kinder to to yourself if you're a perfectionist, like I am. I suspect you might be too. And I have to get over myself every time I sit down to write. Even though I've been commissioned for 4 books, every time I sit down to write, there's a voice. I call her Miss Trunchbull, who says, "You're such a bad writer. You can't write. What are you doing? What? This is just a fluke that you got." And I have to get over that. And now I just tell her to F off, and I'm kinder to myself. And I say, I'm just going to sit here and write, and I'm not going to listen to her. And then spiritually, I'm not talking about religion, as I said before. Nourish your spirit. Take time to soak in those little moments. If somebody smiles at you, or if you have a nice chat to somebody, or you've had a nice dog walk and there was, the sun came through, or you got rained on, but it still felt good. What good is happening in your life, and soak in that, because the brain has something called a negativity bias, and it takes microseconds to register something bad. the latest COVID statistic or the conspiracy theory podcast or whatever. It takes microseconds to notice bad news and for it to go into your being. But it takes longer to register that, oh, that was a nice cup of tea. And for that to have a lasting effect on our physiology, we've got to go, oh, that was a nice cup of tea. That was really nice. Or that smile, that chat with Louisa down by the river, that was so good. We had such a cackle. That was so good. And sit with it. Don't just go, yeah, that was good. That was good. Or, people don't even notice, actually. That's the stuff first thing. Notice that there's good stuff happening at the moment as well. And soak in that experience so that neurologically it starts to change your biology. So that's there's loads more, but those are I think, quick wins. And having a gratitude practice or something like that is a really powerful thing to do.
I think there's a couple of things in there that really kind of made me think. And one was about asking people, having that emotional connection with people to say, can I cry with you as well as laugh with you? Because I think we are, well, not all of us, but I suspect we are. Yes, everything's fine, and you want to look like you're always doing really well and everything's good, and then it does take a different kind of strength, doesn't it, to say, well, it isn't actually, and can I share that with you? And the other thing about noticing things, because I think we've become that Instagram generation of, here's a photo of this and here's and then you're not actually really appreciating it, are you? You're just taking a photo of it and moving on to the next thing. So I think
absolutely. And then we don't notice, I never take my phone out when I'm walking my dog. Occasionally I do. I've taken it out a couple of times to listen to this, actually, when I'm out walking. But I think very consciously about, why am I taking my phone out? Because if I go out there, I'm the biggest addict when it comes to my phone. I'll be on my WhatsApp, I'll be on social media, I'll even be looking at my emails while I could be walking my doggy and having a wonderful time with her. But a couple of weeks ago, I went down to the river with someone I've met recently around here, and she had her phone with her, propped up, filming her the entire time she was in the river. And I thought, it's kind of like immerse in the experience. Let yourself enjoy the experience of it, Although she's probably got more followers than I have, so maybe I should take a leaf from her book.
then again, I am slightly conscious that I've just got a new GoPro and I have been.
Yeah, but that's different. That's been a bit of a fun. I've looked at, that's been a bit of fun, and that's your new thing. It's your birthday present, isn't it? So you've just playing with your new toy. Please don't stop bringing your GoPro. Oh my goodness, she's going to stop doing this.
No. I think that makes me feel like I can relive the experience afterwards, and the filming of it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've just got one final question before we go into your sort of final thoughts, which is around how you discovered creativity. I think that kind of, really sort of struck a chord with me when you were younger, and then in certain periods of your life when you escaped by going into your head to create stories. And you've obviously developed that into your adult life as a writer. What do you think it's about creative pursuits that help many people with their mental health?
I think that creative energy is a form of spiritual energy. So that's one aspect of it. It's our inspiration, that's passion. And, when it's going well, it can feel really joyful. So I think there's immense healing when we write. In fact, I have a book, one of my favorite books. I have lots and lots of books and lots of books on writing. And one of my favorite books is Writing as a Way of Healing. Louise DeSalvo, love that book. But creativity can also be an immense source of pain as well, and look at Sylvia Plath writing The Bell Jar. It's the only book amazing writer. It's the only book she ever wrote. And she was constantly battling with her creative demons and never allowed herself, the space to fully express. And I think that was a big part of her mental ill health. Virginia Woolf as well. So history is peppered with stories of creatives who literally died because they couldn't express, they didn't allow themselves to express their creativity. But when we do allow ourselves to express creatively, it can be a source of absolute joy. And that can be deciding to make I keep going on about rock buns because I've made some recently. Louisa makes the most wonderful rock buns, but she puts so much creativity into how she cooks. She'll take a BBC Good Food recipe and she'll make it her own because she puts patience into it, and she's just her little touches. And so I decided to make some at the weekend, not in my wham bam thank you ma'am style, which is like put it all together as quickly as possible, bung it in the oven, and then forget about it and it's burnt. But let me just really take my time and chop these little bits of apricot up and make it pretty. And it's almost like a meditation. So I think it can be immensely healing and calming. You know, I don't know if you can now hear the rain thundering down.
Oh, I can't actually, but it's gone very dark here. It's going to
Yeah.
change, isn't it? Crazy May weather. That's interesting. So I think as from what you're saying there, creativity comes in so many different forms. I think you sometimes think of the classics, painting, writing, and so on. But as you said, those things are quite meditative. Really sums it up, actually. Well, this has been very interesting. I don't know if there's a time for you to leave us with a final thought.
So Denise, you wanted some quick tips for your listeners on sleep. And let me just throw out at you my five. I'm famous for calling them my five non-negotiables. These are the five things that will profoundly change your relationship with sleep. I'm only going to mention them very briefly because if people want more, just put my name into Google and there's loads there. The first the first of the five: eat breakfast within half an hour of getting up. So if you're having difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep, or your nervous system is out of balance, i.e. you're getting hot flushes, that's a sign that sympathetic, parasympathetic are out of balance. Eat within half an hour of rising, even if it's a small breakfast, include a source of protein. So it might be as little as 8 almonds and 2 dates, a piece of dried fruit, some nuts, or half a banana and some nuts. Breakfast, cut back on caffeine. Don't use caffeine as a substitute for food. That over revs the wrong part of your nervous system. It switches off the part of the nervous system involved in sleep. And no caffeine after 3 in the afternoon. Ideally, no more than 2 cups of tea or coffee a day if you're getting real sleep problems. Number 3, drink at least 2 liters of water a day to hydrate your brain, and it enables your sleep biochemistry to work more efficiently. Number 4, get your phone out of the bedroom, get your electronics out of the bedroom. Number 5, get to bed earlier, 3 or 4 nights a week. So that means possibly being in bed around 9:30, 10. You don't have to be asleep, but reading a book. Remember books, old-fashioned ones like this, they still make them. Reading a book, or a gratitude practice, or meditation, or listening to relaxing music, but not on your device. So that's 5 things. 7 to 21 days, because it varies from one person to the next. 7 to 21 days of doing these 5 non-negotiables will profoundly change your relationship with sleep and your energy levels. And then, so when people come to see me for one-to-ones, even in the psychiatric clinic, I was recommending this as well, with severe sleep problems. When people come to see me, I don't see them a second time unless they've done these things for at least 2 weeks, because I know then we can't go deeper. And the deeper work might be to work on the trauma, or the fact that they're not sleeping because they hate their relationship, or they need to change jobs. But unless you clean up the nervous system with these things first, you don't really know what you're dealing with. You know, is this person not sleeping because they're drinking 15 cups of tea a day, or because of the childhood trauma? It's difficult. And sometimes people have trauma which is nicely packed away. They've come to terms with it. They don't need to deal with that. But we take the caffeine away, then they're sleeping deeply. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I know it seems so simple when you put it like that, but actually it's very good advice. I know, and a few things in there made me think. Um, thank
It shamed you.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much, Nerina. It's been fascinating. As I say, I only get snippets of your insights when we're down at the river, but I'm looking forward to being back down there again. If you want to leave us before we go today with a song that you think, that one that resonates with you, it might be of the moment, it might be just something that you think sums up your attitude to things, or just a little sort of.
So I knew you were going to ask me this, and just before we came on, actually, I suddenly thought, oh my God, what's in my head today? And one of my little things that I do first thing in the morning is I go over to a corner of my room where I've got a little sort of altar and a candle. I light a candle, and I've got a little box of angel cards, and I go, right, what do I need to know for today? What's my word for today? And I pulled out this word. I love this word because it's very much one of my values: freedom. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And since then, I've had that Altronate song in my head. Cause
Oh,
I'm free to that one. Was that Altronate?
I was thinking that you're
Congratulations.
going to say, Wham!
Wham.
I don't want your freedom.
Oh, no, 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 no. You know,
I
no,
do, yeah.
I
Thanks.
thought
Now you've got that one in your head. But freedom, no, no, I do know the song you mean. That's a very good choice. And that
I love that
I've
song.
got that in my head now. That one's now replaced the Wham song in my head. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Because for me, freedom, I just think find freedom in your life in whatever way, even if you're looking after 5 kids and elderly parents, whatever. We always have choice. I always think we always have choice, and in some way we're free to do some of the things that we love doing, even if it's in tiny measure. you know 5 minutes to write that the dreams down, or to start writing your novel while you're steaming the broccoli or something like that. I don't know what it is, but find your freedom. For me, that's really important. So there
Perfect.
we go.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Nerina. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
And I do look forward to seeing you again in the water.
Absolutely.